Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react. Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. Sean, this morning I was out of coffee. I had to go to the store right when I got up.
Had to
get some coffee.
Yep.
I went to get my little K-Cups, and usually I don't go to Target to get food. It's about 15 minutes away. I drive there. Right when I'm putting the car into park, I realize I don't have my wallet or my phone.
Oh, no.
I drive all the way back home, grab my stuff, and then go back. All right, now I'm half an hour behind. Yep. You know, only have a few hours in the morning before we start recording, so it's critical. So I'm kind of pissed at myself, but I'm all right. So I go in, I do my shopping, I get a few things, and it's 8:30 a.m., and maybe 8:45. There's no checkers. All they have open at that time of day is the self-checkout.
Wow.
Oh, so annoying, right? I'm like, all right, now I have a project to do at 8:30 a.m. I get all my stuff, I get it into bags, and then at the end of the process, it asks me, how many bags did you use? Because I don't know how it is in California these days, but here you got to pay like 15 cents for a bag.
Yep.
So it asked me how many bags I used. And it had a little tiny button on the touch screen. And I tried to touch it. It wouldn't add a bag. And I tried like probably 10 touches, right? And I'm struggling. Like, you know how it is with the touch screen. It's this huge screen. I'm trying to like anchor my thumb on the edge and then press it with my finger and all this stuff. I couldn't get it to go. And there was no one around. There was no checkers or employees. And so I'm like, dude, this is not accessible. I can't pay. It's not like I didn't try to pay for a bag.
Yeah.
I left without paying for a bag.
That's, yep, I do not
blame
you.
Is that fair or?
Yes.
Okay, good.
And Target isn't charging you for the bag because they want to. They're charging you for the bag because it's a state law. So It's Target's bad. They don't have a setup that is accessible. But I can almost guarantee you they don't care that you didn't pay for the bag. They did what they're required to do in terms of fulfilling state law. And screw the state if you couldn't pay for it because it was a burden to do so in terms of making it happen. Not a burden financially, but a burden because you couldn't execute the right button.
And I guess there's no record of a bag being used, so Target probably doesn't have to pay the state for that bag fee. 15 cents.
Yeah, my guess is they pay the fee when they buy the bag themselves.
Buy the bags?
I could be wrong.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure they're paying the fee no matter what.
We don't know exactly how it works, and our consensus is it's okay that I stole the bag because it's an accessibility issue.
That's where my head's at. But I have more questions. It sounds like a matter of principle. You just don't buy food from Target. Can you
sort of principle, but also like their produce is not very good. Yeah. Like, obviously, that's not Target's focus, right?
So that's what I was curious about, because to me, a jar of Jif or a box of Cheerios is the same no matter what. But I'm with you. Fresh produce, raw meat, both categories are a different beast.
That's partly what tipped the scales for Target today. It was like, oh, I'm going to get K-Cups. Like, I couldn't get those at Target, you know?
Sure.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm glad you stuck it to the man for those 15 cents. That's the spirit.
Community starts when we share our story.
Rare is defined differently by everybody. In this segment, we're highlighting what rare is means to the storyteller.
Rare is powerful. Rare is resilient. Rare is uplifting.
Rare Is began as a social media campaign and has become a platform that is elevating the voices, faces, and experiences of the rare disease community.
Amgen's new program, Rare Is One, aims to share diverse perspectives from around the world of those impacted by rare disease. Hear from the storytellers who are navigating life with the rare disease, supporting a loved one, and advocating for change in the rare disease community, and the challenges they've encountered and overcome.
I'm Rob Long. I'm the Executive Director of Uplifting Athletes.
Rob, how did rare disease change your life, your outlook on the future for yourself?
I would challenge you and kind of say it's been such a positive for me. It's brought me a completely different perspective on life. It's introduced me so many incredible people and provided me an opportunity to learn more about not only myself, but the community at large, and understand we have such a tremendous opportunity to change the future of the rare disease community. And so it's brought so much positive influence into my life. The people in the rare disease community are just some of the best, most genuine, authentic people you'll ever meet. That is something that I absolutely love. And so being able to be a part of it and being introduced to it through my diagnosis is something that at the time didn't feel like something I was going to enjoy, but it's been a tremendous blessing.
I think a lot of people would agree. There's a lot of opportunity to impact the world around us. What does that look like for you? How are you doing it? What opportunities are you pursuing?
We know the facts here, right? There's over 10,000 rare diseases. 95% of them don't have an FDA-approved treatment. I think there's a ton of opportunity for us to continue to invest in the future of the rare disease cause through investments in research, through investments in repurposing already approved medicines to get treatments to people as fast as we possibly can. I think from that standpoint, the sky's the limit, right? There's so much out there for us to be able to capture. And I think the other big opportunity is to bring the attention and awareness to this community by letting people know how many people are in the community, right? I think it's an amazing community that's often very fractured. And I think specifically, there's the huge opportunity to build that unity amongst the other folks in the rare disease community and get us all going in the same direction and making a lot of change, whether it be from the research side or policy issues. There's so much that we can do, and we have some of the best people in the world to do it.
How would you say some of those best people in the world have impacted your life?
I think just the perspective and the stories, right? Knowing you can, that's such a big thing, right? How many times we've heard stories of friends, people that we've met in the rare disease community, and you just go, wow, I can't believe you've done that. Kyle, riding across country, doing all the stuff you guys do. It's somebody like Dr. Feigenbaum, finding his own cure. The families that they become medical experts without a medical degree, and you think of the things that they've overcome. It all just inspires me to just say, hey, if they can do it, I know I can figure it out. And you kind of have to chart your own path forward with that, figuring out what you're uniquely positioned to do. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from Dr. Feigenbaum, actually. I heard his story, heard him talk, and I was like, do I need to go back to medical school and figure this out? And he was like, I think he didn't want to tell me no, but he was like, hey, we all have our certain skill
Probably
sets.
not.
Yeah, probably not the best use of your time. But what he did tell me is that we all have a role to play. He said researchers can't do research without funding. So if you have an ability to go out and tell your story and draw people in and bring donations into the community, that's what you need to do. If you have the ability to understand science and you can make a new discovery, then that's what you need to do. If you guys can be really good podcast hosts and you can bring more attention and awareness to the community, that's what you need to do. And I think that was so empowering to me is that you don't have to do something that somebody else is already doing. You just have to find, how can I add value to this community? Big sigh of relief. I don't have to go to medical school. Now I can figure out what I'm good at, and that's what I can offer.
Rob, what brings you hope?
What brings me hope is the other people that I see in the rare disease community. You see these incredible warriors that have, by most standards, been dealt a really tough hand, and they continue to rise above, and they continue to show up. They continue to press for new legislation. They continue to press for new research and new developments and new therapies. People that have been pushed out of their comfort zones to continue to impact and change the lives of the people around them. And I think so many people that I see in the rare disease community, which is the most beautiful thing, is that so many of them aren't doing it for themselves. They're doing it for the other people that are coming behind them. And that is so inspiring to me, and it brings me so much hope and joy. You see the positivity in people, the goodness that they have, and they're not doing it because they can help themselves. They're doing it because they don't want somebody else to have to experience what they've experienced, and that's what gives me hope every day.
I think you're a testament of that too. Everything you're doing with uplifting athletes isn't just about brain tumors. You guys are working to benefit and add value, as you put it, wherever you can. That's huge.
No matter your diagnosis, the journey's so similar. And I think that's where, for me, it's been so rewarding to know that we may not be funding brain tumor research or brain cancer research every year, but there's still a difference being made because there's somebody else with that same story, that same journey, that same pathway of walking into an office and saying, I don't have a cure. What do I do? And there's things that we can do now to build that out.
What are you excited about for the future?
Everything I've said so far is about the people. That's what's exciting, is that there's people who care, who are driven, motivated to make a difference and to make the world better. There's not one person that shows up to a Global Genes conference or a NORD conference or to the Every Life Rare Week. There's hundreds. And that's what's exciting, is that this community is getting bigger, it's getting stronger. That's where the excitement really lies.
Rare Resilience is a segment of the Two Disabled Dudes podcast made in partnership with Amgen and RareIsCommunity.com.
Kyle, you and I both know, and our listeners do as well, disability requires assistance, and service dogs can help. Today we're talking with a friend who recently got a service dog and is here to talk about that process. We met Linda through the world of disability, specifically ataxia. She's the founder of Nebraska Ataxia, now called Ataxia Connection, which helps those in the region affected by ataxia through direct assistance, whether it's a device or a little bit of extra money to widen a door. They also help through community and professional education and awareness, support for care partners, and funding for medical therapies, equipment, and research. We've become good friends with Linda over the years, and we're excited to have her on the show today. So please enjoy our conversation with Linda Snyder. Linda, welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast.
Thank you, and what an honor for me it is to be part of the show. I've been a fan of the show, to be on it, and to know you guys a little bit personally makes me a little bit starstruck. I mean, it's not like meeting George Clooney, but, it's up there.
Sure. I mean, it's close. Yeah, it's Clooney, Brad Pitt, maybe, and then...
Yes, and then Sean, for sure. Yeah, Sean and Kyle, yeah.
And Linda, we've got you on video, and you've got a friend next to you. Can you introduce your
who decided to
take a nap?
To lay down? Cedric. Hey,
Wonderful.
Oh,
Very
look
good.
at
I can actually see his face.
Yes. What a beautiful dog. Linda, we want to hear a little bit about you and your personal story. And then we want to talk to you all about a service animal and that process and what that has done for you and maybe how it's increased or impeded your independence. So tell us a little bit about you and your personal story.
So I have spinal genetic type of ataxia, type 1 actually. So which typically affects, I started having symptoms probably early to mid 30s. And so of course at the beginning, just like everybody, it's pretty mild with a little bit of stumbling. But then as you get older, things progress. And like everyone else, I need more and more assistance from the people around me, whether it be friends and family or dog. So I actually didn't really know there were mobility service dogs. I always thought of service dogs as like a seeing eye dog, like for the blind.
Sure.
But there are a few places that do mobility assistance dogs. They're not as common, and I think they're a little bit harder to train, but there are out there. And so my friend actually, she is the one that told me about it. I actually didn't even know till she actually came to a support group meeting and mentioned that her daughter had one. And so that's how the journey for me working with getting a service dog started. And that was a long time ago. To be honest with you, I was on the wait list for 6 years to get him. So part of that, the interview process is intense. So Canine Partners for Life is the organization that he's from. And they're in Cochranville, Pennsylvania. And so to apply, you actually have to fly there and do an in-person interview, which takes hours, in addition to the actual paper application where you have to like write essays and get recommendations. They do a lot of background checking, I think, to make sure that the people that are getting the service dog are the right people. So they do a lot of work on their end to make sure that the match is right when you finally do get it. COVID, of course, did put a damper on things because for part of the training, they actually spend 6 months at the prison, at a local prison. And during COVID, the prisons shut down. And so the dogs weren't able to go there and get, because that's where they learn all their like basic commands. So then during that time, they couldn't go to the prison at all. And so I had to wait a little bit longer to get him, but he's definitely worth the wait because I initially just thought like he would help with the balance, which he does. So they have a harness that almost looks like a saddle that's custom built for him and for my height. And so I walk with him instead of using a cane. And I feel a lot more stable with him by my side because he can sense when I'm listing to the right or to the left, and he can compensate with his own body and make sure that I'm still upright. On even ground, he's really stable and things like that. So the walking part with him, I knew about, but he's also able to like push open a handicap door, push a button to the elevator. If I want him to go pay, like I can give him a wallet and he'll go up to the counter and jump up with his front paws and hand over the wallet. Yeah. I'll progress to a wheelchair. So when I am in a wheelchair, he'll be doing other things for it. Like he turns on and off lights and he can do things like that. So in a wheelchair, I won't need the balance piece, but I'll use him to do other things.
Sure.
He can do front load laundry.
Wow.
My husband can't even do that. Get some laundry done. The dog can do it. So yeah, he can open the door with his nose and then he grabs it with his mouth. The bad thing is you do get slobber on things. Everything seems to have slobber on it now, but that's all right.
So before you got Cedric, were you only using a cane?
I use a cane most of the time. At home, I use nothing. It's like a baby. You know, I just use furniture and the walls. I just grab onto everything around me to walk. When I would go out into public, I would use the cane or a walker if I was going to go a longer distance, or like at the airport when I had to like maybe be faster to make sure I got to the next plane. Because with the walker, I'm a lot more fast than with the cane. So that's what I was using those two in public.
Now, what was it like, or what is it like for your day job? Are you able to take Cedric with you? What are you?
He comes with me 24/7, pretty much. So like everywhere I go, he goes. Wow. So work, but like how he is now. Really, he's working very hard. You can, as he lays here.
That looks like a nice way to work.
Yeah, real hard job here. So, so he comes to work with me, but like if I go out to dinner, he gets under the table. And actually, I went to dinner with Kyle, and he.
We didn't even know he was there.
That's what people say. People say, "I didn't know the dog was there." Because he's just quiet, and if he was a person, he would be a Netflix binger. Yeah. He's real chill. He's just...
You know, you mentioned some of the benefits he provides, such as balance or doing the laundry and those things. But can you share anything that you've personally experienced, maybe internally? Has it increased your confidence in or willingness to go out, or do you think there's not much of a difference there? What has it done for you mentally or emotionally?
100% mentally. I'm gonna cry. I feel so much stronger with him by my side, and it's only been a few months, and I can't even imagine my life without him, looking down and seeing him by my side every day. But yeah, going out, it's a game changer. Just knowing that he's going to be there for whatever I need. And I know the people around me, like my husband, Skippy, he also feels better, like knowing Cedric's around. He's even said, like, his confidence, he feels better knowing that I'm not alone. So now he doesn't, like, if he's got to work or he has something to do, before we always tried to do something together because he wanted to be there to help me if I need it. But now it feels like, oh, well, Cedric has it.
Yeah.
I don't have to be there.
Wow.
So,
no,
it's not just nice for me. It's nice for people around me.
Absolutely. When you decided 6 years ago to pursue a service animal, did you know there was going to be a long wait? Or were you thinking, I'll go down and apply and I'll have one in a few months? Like, what was going through your head in that season of life?
To be honest with you, I had no idea that it would take that long. In my interview, they told me it would be 2 to 3 years. So that is what I had expected. Now, I understand COVID put a wrench into things, but having gone up recently and done the training, I realized that they have currently stopped taking applications because they're so inundated with requests. So many people need or want a service dog that all across the country, they're having trouble with, like, we are all familiar with the supply chain issues. I mean, apparently there's a supply chain issue with service dogs too, because there just aren't enough to meet the demand. And so that's partly why I had to wait longer. They do a really good job of matching like the personality with the dog. So, that is part of it, is that they want to like make sure that the partnership is correct. I mean, I suppose like a marriage, right?
And it kind of makes sense. Opposites attract, because you're super loud and energetic and crazy, and obviously Cedric is a little more chill.
He's just a chill dude, man. I thought at first something is wrong with this dog. He's a puppy that like lays around, does nothing. But only 1 out of every 5 dogs actually gets to be a service dog. That's the other problem, is that the requirement, like what they use to actually graduate as a service dog, is only 1 out of 5. So, Mom might have 5 or 6 puppies, but only one of them will get to the point to be a service dog. The other ones will basically, I hate to say, feel out, or they just become, they have a different role. Like they're therapy dogs. Like they're more like emotional support of therapy dogs. Sure. They become people's pets. Obviously, highly trained pet. Yeah. But they become more pets. So they want the right temperament to be a service dog. It has to be like super calm. They have to be smart. They have to be good in unusual situations. So they're looking for certain things before they'll even like keep going with the training.
How do you feel about the timing for you? You were, I think you said mid-30s before you were diagnosed, or before there were noticeable symptoms. Do you wish you would have pursued Cedric or something like Cedric sooner, or do you feel like at this stage of life this is the time for you?
No, I wish I would have done it. Had I known now, like I would have done it sooner. At the time I applied, I didn't quote need him. I was still able to function fairly well on my own. And so even then, when I applied, I thought, oh, no big deal. A couple years, 2-3 years, not a problem. Sure. Yeah, no big deal. But then when it ended up being 6, and now I'm much more symptomatic, now I'm like, I need him. Like, he is a necessary part of my life. And so now I think a lot of trouble with people is they wait too long to incorporate anything in their life that could be helpful. Like, even like canes or walkers or wheelchairs. It feels like the majority of people waited out longer than maybe they should to incorporate those things. And I did the same thing with the service dog. Knowing now that it takes long to wait, I wish I would have started the process sooner. And that would be my recommendation to anybody that wants or is thinking about getting a service dog. Really look at the different companies. Make sure you go with a really reputable firm that does a good job training, and apply sooner than later, because it's in your benefit.
And I imagine if, let's say you apply and then a couple years go by and your progression is slower than you expected, or maybe is not progressing at all, I'm sure you can always remove yourself from the process if it's determined you don't really need one.
Yes. Or you could say, hey, somebody else could use it for now, maybe match me in a couple years, a year from now. Yeah. If you communicate with them, they'll let you, you can work with them to try to figure out the right timing for you.
You mentioned that they take great pains in making sure they get the right people matched up with the right dogs, and you fill an application. What are the things they're looking for in the application? And, would they have thrown your application out if you would have answered a few questions differently? Or, what kinds of stuff are they looking for?
If you would have been truthful, what would the outcome be?
How do we game the system here?
If I tell the truth on any application, it's going in the trash right away. So, what they ask, though, they ask more like about your home environment, like who's in the home. Do you have children in the home? Do you have other pets in the home? Because they want to know, like, do you have, like, we have 3 cats, right? So he has to be like super chill with cats. Like, some dogs are not that way, but he had to be like cool with cats coming up to him because we already had 3.
Yep.
They also want to know like where you work, what kind of job you have, what do you do for hobbies? Do you hike a lot? Do you go outside a lot? Are you an outdoors person? Like for you, Kyle, you're a bike rider. You probably need a dog that run, like is going to run like a maniac that can keep up with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or a dog that would be cool with chilling for 8 hours while I'm out on the bike trail, and then So.
Yeah, that's in like a little cart or something.
Yeah.
You can, or maybe you can teach a dog to pedal. I don't know. Teach a dog to ride the bike. But yeah, I mean, they asked about your hobbies. And Skippy and I both scuba dive. So he has to be okay, even though he's a lab, which is a water dog. He has to not be jumping in the water whenever he feels like it because we're around water a lot. So he can't, that might be his natural instinct to like run to the water, but he can't. He's there to help me. I need help. You can't just run to the river and jump in when you feel like it. So they had to find a dog that was like cool with that part of it, knowing that we're scuba divers and around water a lot and things. And we like to go to a lot of outdoor concerts. So they had to have a dog that like loud noises don't bother them, uneven ground, because we're sitting outside for hours at these concerts on a picnic blanket. So, things like that. They ask about hobbies in your house, really, and your work.
What about the responsibility of taking care of the dog? I think about it for myself. I run fast and far from responsibility, and that's...
sadly, I can see that.
But, I think about for me, I'm like, oh, that would be so cool to have a service dog. But then I'm like, okay, when I get off the plane, all of a sudden, my first thought, rather than like, how am I getting to where I'm going? My first thought probably has to be, where do I get this dog? Find a place for him to go to the bathroom. Or I need to feed him or give him water or whatever, right? All this stuff. And all of a sudden it's not like, I don't know. It's not the world doesn't center around me anymore, right?
It never has.
I was a cat person and they're very independent. I mean, they're in automatic feeders, so I wouldn't even have to feed them. Skippy does her litter box, so I never had to do that. Like, the cats go to the bathroom when they feel like it. Like, I never had to do anything with the cats. So, like, yeah, going outside to go to the bathroom, I was like, oh, you're not, like, using the indoor litter box? Okay, yeah, okay, we got this. And then, like, thankfully, he would tell me by basically standing up and getting in my face and staring at me like, Yeah, and then I'd be like, oh yeah, bathroom. Okay.
It's
Now
time.
we're in the routine. So, and to be honest with you, he's like a person. He probably holds 8, 9 hours. So like a plane ride, if he had a long plane ride, international and things like that, he would go to the bathroom before he got on the plane, but then he'd be fine for 8, 9 hours.
Curious about naming. Was that a name you came up with, or the organization?
No, you don't get to pick it, nothing. They're like, your master is Cedric, that's your dog. Here it is.
That's the breed and everything about it.
Yep. Yeah, because they've spent almost 2 years training him to do it and using that name. I mean, I couldn't change his name now. I like his name anyways, but yeah.
Sure.
And his brother Harry. I'm assuming they're Harry Potter fans because Cedric is a Harry Potter character and his brother is Harry.
That's fantastic.
So, but yeah, you don't get to pick anything. I mean, they call you and they're like, "We got a dog." Okay, thanks. That's it. That's it. That's the extent of it.
Wow. Yeah.
Thankfully, it has a good name.
Yeah.
Not as good as Sean and Kyle, though.
Linda, we want to give you a chance to talk about what you do for a community as a whole in the world of ataxia and rare disease. So can you share a little bit about Nebraska ataxia and or whatever's on your heart to share? What do you do?
Sure. There was a nurse at the University of Minnesota, Sharmans. Do you guys know Sharmans? So she's a nurse at the University of Minnesota, and she's fabulous. She also grew up in Nebraska. So we had this weird connection, like she grew up in Nebraska. She actually was a nurse at the hospital I work at. So we had these weird connections. Now she works at the Bob Allison Ataxia Clinic in Minneapolis. And so I called her to get an appointment, and she was like, "Hey, you should go to this annual ataxia conference." And I was like, I'd never gone. I'm not really a conference person necessarily, but I thought about it. I was like, I do like to travel. So I was like, yeah, okay, let's go. So that was in Orlando, Florida, in like maybe 2016 or 15 or so. And so that was my first AAC conference. So at the conference, you've gone, there are hundreds of people there with ataxia. And I felt so much camaraderie and connection to the other, having a shared experience and not having to explain why your voice is weird and why you're stumbling and why you're whatever and you have COVID on your shirt and whatever. You don't have to explain because everybody there already knows. And so that was so empowering that I love that experience. And so we were sitting there at the very last day when they had that banquet, and they had a little slideshow to thank people. And it came up. I said, "Hey, thanks, Jim Fisher, Omaha, Nebraska." I look at my husband. I'm like, "Who's this Jim Fisher guy? We live in Omaha. It ain't that big of a place. We both have ataxia. He's donating to them. Like, I gotta meet this guy." So of course we get home, and right away Skippy's like tracking him down and finding him on the internet. And I ended up emailing him and then going over to his house, basically knocking on the door and be like, "Hey Jim, I'm Linda. I have ataxia. Let's be friends." And he was like, "Okay." So that's how it started. It's just Jim and I just sat down in his living room, and he has ataxia in his family. I have it in mine. So we decided then, like, hey, let's do a support group. Help, take what we felt in Orlando and bring it to Nebraska and get that same kind of camaraderie, even if it's just the two of us. we'll go out for coffee. It's good. Even if nobody else joins us,
together.
it's just two of us. It's so fun. Just like you guys. It's so fun, you know? And so, surprisingly, so the NAF sent out an email, and the first meeting probably had 20 some people. I was shocked because Omaha is really not that big of a place, right? Like, so for a small community, that seemed like a lot of people. And people drove in from an hour and a half away to come to the first support group meeting. Wow. And just, again, same feeling of like, wow, you know, like understanding not only the ataxia side, but the caregiver side, because they had got their own problems. Caregivers have their own issues. You know, I ain't that easy. So, you know, Kyle, you'd be real hard. So, you know.
Yeah, right.
So it was nice for the caregivers to also have that same feeling as well. And then, so what happened is I realized very quickly, and you know, living with ataxia, it costs a lot. And insurance isn't always helpful when it comes to covering everything. They want to get, you know, the most basic walker that doesn't even have wheels. They won't even pay for a rollator. They want to pay for the most basic wheelchair. They want to, they won't pay for grab bars or things like that that are going to make your life better and really don't cost that much. And so I wanted to do a little fundraiser to help the community, but we weren't a 501c3, so we couldn't actually do it at that time. So I went to a lawyer, became a 501c3, and then we had a fundraiser and keep some of the funds locally. And so we do help. So we have a grant system now. Now it's been years. And to be honest with you, it shocks me. It's shocking to see how big it's gotten, how much it's grown. They actually changed it. So when I went to the lawyer, of course, I hadn't pre-thought it out. Classic Linda style. I just show up and I'm like, oh, let's wing it. Let's do this. All right. You know, I show up at the lawyer. They're like, what's the name? I'm like, oh, Nebraska ataxia. That sounds really good. Forgetting we literally live on the border of Iowa. And Council Bluffs, Iowa is 10 minutes away. So I'm like limiting the geographic area by calling it that. But you know, you're on the spot. So they actually just changed the name to Ataxia Connection. So they could be more, their thought is they want to expand. And they already have. They've already started to expand. So it started out as mainly a Nebraska, Iowa thing. But now it's moving into like St. Louis or even grants and other places. Yeah. They have a big donor down in St. Louis that wants to do the same thing down there and give grants in that area for wheelchair ramps and grab bars and things like that.
So what started as two people, you and Jim, how many would you say you're serving today or maybe have served over the years? Whether it be a grant money or helping them attend a conference or just connecting over coffee?
Hundreds and hundreds. I can't even count.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Because this year, 33 people are going to the annual ataxia conference for free. Like no registration costs, airplane costs, hotel, everything's covered. And we're sending 33 people from Nebraska down to Orlando this year.
Yeah, as we know, just the connection that's created there is as important as any medication, maybe, you know?
Yeah, it's so funny because there are 3 guys that are in the sport group, and they actually joined a gym together, and they work out together. The 3 of them, they go to the gym together and work out.
And
So
had it not
it's
been
like-
for a support group or network that has been established, they may have never met.
Yeah. So it's stories like that I love to hear. And I did move from Nebraska to South Carolina in August of last year, really because of the weather. The winter time in Nebraska can be brutal. It's the snow and the ice, and with the ataxia, it's just dangerous. Of course, you live in sunny California, so you don't really know what that's like. But Kyle knows now that
he's a
been
pretty
in
boy in
Philadelphia.
California here.
Yeah.
Kyle, you were a California boy, but now you're in Philadelphia, right?
Yeah, but let's not get into the whole battle between coasts because I might offend somebody in my family. So
No. I'm just saying, but you know what it's like winter.
Yeah.
You know what winter is
Totally.
like now because you live there. But that's what we left Nebraska because the winter time was just getting to be too dangerous. And I was basically a hermit. Like, unless there was a garage I could pull into, I didn't want to leave my house. And so we moved to South Carolina, and the weather here is so much, even today, before I got on this, I went for a walk.
Nice.
You can't do that in Nebraska.
Nope,
You can't just go for a walk in February. But so it is sad that I don't have those same Nebraska ataxia connections. I still Zoom with them and that, but it's just different.
Sure.
And I am going back for the gal, which is in March. So yeah. And weirdly, somebody who's in the spur group texted me and said, "Hey, my cousin lives a mile from you." He literally lives on the street. She's from Canines, Nebraska. So, and we've gone out. So Nebraska ataxia, I might have left, but it's apparently still following me.
Well, it's a small world we live in. And
Yeah.
we all benefit from the work everybody else does and the stories that we share. So we're so glad that you carved out some time tonight to join us and to share Cedric and allow us to meet him over camera and just to hear a little bit about the story.
He woke up to say goodbye.
It's great. It's a great shot.
He's doing this thing.
He's like, I think he's scratching his face, tired. Like, oh, are you guys done yet?
Please
Come on,
don't listen to
shut
this
up.
private.
Yeah.
That'll be the next thing.
Well, Linda, thank you again for joining us today. We're grateful for your energy, your work, what you've done to support hundreds of people over the years, and we're grateful to be connected to you.
Well, thank you for having me on again. I'm always starstruck when you boys are together, and you do such great work for not just ataxia, but rare disease in general. So much respect for both of you.
Thank
We
you,
love you,
Linda.
Linda. Thanks.
Yeah, we love you. Kyle, that was probably the hardest interview I've done, mostly because we were on video and I was distracted. Although we couldn't see Cedric the whole time, I knew where he was, so I just kept watching the corner to see if he'd poke his head up.
Yeah, I kept having the urge to reach out and touch him, to pet him, but it doesn't work that way.
Right? And Linda obviously is an incredibly smart and hilarious individual. We're so grateful for her friendship and, of course, for her time to join us to talk about that whole process that she recently went through.
And it's nice to have a friend who's gone through the process. I know people who are looking at the prospect of getting a service dog, and it's nice just to know what to expect from a good friend when you go into that process.
Agreed.
Thank you, Linda.
Well, speaking of thank yous, as we do with every episode, we like to wrap with a note of gratitude. We call them thank you notes and find value in keeping us grounded. So, Kyle, Who's your thank you note going out to today?
Sean, a couple years ago, we had this thing called the pandemic, and I run a program of bike rides, and basically it's a bunch of get-togethers for a lot of people, right? So we didn't have any of our events, and so we had to figure out a way to do it without being in person. And my friend Pat O'Connell lives in Santa Cruz. He was one of the first ones to be like, whatever we got to do, how do we do this? So he rode a ton of miles by himself in the month of May 2020, and he's just been on board for everything. This year, he's doing a Ride Ataxia hometown event again in Santa Cruz, and raising a bunch of money and getting people excited. So I really appreciate what Pat does for Ride Ataxia, and just that he's a really nice guy and somebody fun to ride with.
Thank you, Pat. My thank you note is going out to the baristas at Starbucks, specifically the morning baristas, which is typically, 90% of the time I go in the morning. But one thing I've noticed over the last few weeks, Kyle, this Starbucks is the only one of this side of town, so it's an incredibly busy Starbucks, especially in the morning. We have a high school right next door, so I feel like teachers, the entire staff is there to get their morning cup of joe, and then many high schoolers there to either get a treat or to kill time before class starts. In an effort to help manage the flow of traffic, again, small location, a barista comes out in the morning and they're on the customer side of the counter helping manage the flow between cafe orders and mobile orders. So you walk in, you tell them your name, and they help keep an eye, or they hand you your drink, so on. Well, I mobile order and they wait for me to walk in before they pull it because it's nitro and on a tap, so they can do it pretty quickly. So as soon as they see me come in, they're like, hey, Sean's here, make it. And it takes a minute. They've also come to realize that me trying to leave the Starbucks, it has one door, push door, and I have, one hand holding my walker and one hand holding my drink.
Right.
It's a challenge. And typically, whoever is at the post on the customer side of the counter will almost say, oh, let me get that. And they basically tell everybody else, hold on, we'll get back to the flow in a minute. And they step over, it's 3 or 4 feet, and they actually hold the door open for me to get out. And that's not every day,
nice.
But it's like, wow. It's obviously an important piece to them, and I appreciate their attention to that level of accessibility. So thank you, morning baristas at Starbucks.
And thank you once again to Linda Snyder for joining us today and giving us her perspective on her experience getting a service dog. You can go to our website at twodisableddudes.com and you can find the links to the stuff we talked about today. Please share and subscribe to the show if you like what you hear. Until next time, keep living with urgency. Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. This show is possible with your support. Visit twodisableddudes.com to stay connected.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player.